Heat stroke and operational readiness 1. Heat stroke and operational readiness in U.S. forces deployed to the Persian Gulf. Hydration, cognitive performance, prevention strategies, and wearable biosensors. James L. Mahan. April 19, 2026. Heat stroke and operational readiness 2. Abstract. Sustained U.S. military operations in the Persian Gulf region expose service members to ambient temperatures routinely exceeding 45 degrees Celsius, creating a persistent risk of exertional and classic heat stroke that directly undermines unit combat effectiveness. This paper synthesizes current evidence on 4 interrelated domains: A. Hydration strategies and electrolyte management in desert combat conditions; B. The cognitive and psychomotor effects of heat stress on operational decision-making; C. Differential prevention strategies for mechanized versus dismounted infantry forces; and D. The emerging role of wearable biosensor technology in real-time heat stress surveillance. Drawing on 8 peer-reviewed journal articles and military technical publications, the paper examines physiological mechanisms of heat illness, evidence-based treatment protocols including rapid field cooling and intravenous fluid resuscitation, and alternative or complementary interventions such as pre-cooling, heat acclimatization, nutraceutical supplementation, and behavioral modification. The paper concludes that a layered prevention framework combining rigorous acclimatization schedules, precision hydration guidance, wearable monitoring, and command-level heat safety culture offers the most robust protection against heat casualties in the operational theater. Future research priorities include longitudinal validation of biosensor accuracy under combat loads and integration of artificial intelligence-driven early warning systems into the tactical operations center. Keywords: heat stroke, operational readiness, Persian Gulf, hydration, cognitive performance. Wearable biosensors, heat acclimatization, dismounted operations. Heat stroke and operational readiness 3. Heat stroke and operational readiness in U.S. forces deployed to the Persian Gulf. Hydration, cognitive performance, prevention strategies, and wearable biosensors. Introduction. The Persian Gulf littoral and its contiguous desert hinterlands constitute one of the most thermally hostile operational environments in the history of American military engagement. Surface temperatures in Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates commonly reach 50 degrees Celsius in summer months, while relative humidity in coastal and low-lying areas can approach 90%, producing wet bulb globe temperatures, WBGT, that far exceed the thresholds at which the human thermoregulatory system can maintain homeostasis. Under physical exertion, Bedno et al., 2010. Since Operation Desert Shield/Desert Storm 1990 to 1991, through the current multi-domain deterrence posture in the region, heat-related illness, HRI, has represented a consistent and operationally significant medical threat to U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, forces. The spectrum of HRI ranges from minor heat cramps and heat syncope to the life-threatening syndrome of heat stroke, defined by a core body temperature exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. In conjunction with central nervous system, CNS, dysfunction manifesting as confusion, ataxia, or loss of consciousness, CASA et al., 2015. Exertional heat stroke, as the predominant military presentation, occurs when metabolic heat production from sustained physical activity overwhelms the body's evaporative, convective, and radiative cooling mechanisms. If untreated, multi-organ failure and death can follow within minutes to hours, making rapid recognition and aggressive cooling the highest priority interventions. Leon and Baukema, 2015. Heat stroke and operational readiness 4. Beyond the acute mortality risk, Subtler forms of heat stress impose a substantial operational burden by degrading cognitive performance, decision-making speed, and psychomotor precision among warfighters at the very moments when mission success demands peak mental acuity. Hancock and Vasmatsidis, 2003. The emergence of wearable physiological monitoring technologies presents a transformative opportunity to shift heat casualty management from a reactive to a predictive model, yet integration into military doctrine remains nascent. Patterson et al., 2019. This paper addresses four focal themes: hydration and electrolyte management in extreme desert combat environments, the cognitive impacts of heat stress on combat decision-making, differential HRI prevention strategies for mechanized versus dismounted troops, and the operational application of wearable biosensors for real-time heat stress monitoring. Each section examines physiological mechanisms, current evidence-based treatment and prevention protocols, and alternative or complementary medical solutions applicable to the deployed environment. Hydration strategies and electrolyte balance in extreme desert combat conditions. Physiological framework. Adequate hydration is the foundational pillar of heat casualty prevention, yet the desert combat environment creates conditions that challenge even the most disciplined hydration practices. In ambient temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius, a soldier performing moderate intensity work may lose 1.0 to 1.5 liters of sweat per hour, with peak losses approaching 2.5 L/Hr during maximal exertion. Saka et al., 2007. At a fluid deficit of merely 2% of body mass, aerobic capacity declines measurably. Deficits of 4 to 6% produce significant impairment in strength, heat stroke, and operational readiness. 5. Endurance and cognitive function, and losses exceeding 8% can precipitate cardiovascular collapse. Sweat is a hypotonic solution containing sodium, 20 to 80 mol/L, chloride, potassium, magnesium, and trace minerals. Prolonged sweat losses therefore create a dual threat: hypovolemia and electrolyte depletion. Paradoxically, over-aggressive water replacement without concurrent sodium replacement risks hyponatremia, a potentially fatal condition that has been documented in military populations consuming excess plain water during sustained heat exposure. Mahan et al., 2006. The U.S. Army's historical guidance, colloquially the "drink before you're thirsty" maxim, has been refined in contemporary doctrine to a more individualized, thirst-guided approach supplemented by sodium replacement to mitigate hyponatremia risk. Evidence-based hydration protocols. Army Technical Bulletin Medical, TBMED, 507/Air Force Pamphlet 48-152 provides the foundational framework for military hydration management, specifying WBGT-based drinking schedules that account for work intensity and work-rest ratios. Headquarters. Department of the Army, 2003. Under high WBGT conditions, above 32 degrees Celsius, the bulletin recommends 0.5 quarts, approximately 473 ml, of water per hour for light work, rising to 1 quart, 946 ml, per hour for heavy work, with a daily maximum of 12 quarts, 11.4 L, to guard against hyponatremia. Sodium supplementation through electrolyte tablets, sports beverages, or appropriately salted field rations is recommended during sustained operations. Saka et al., 2007, in the American College of Sports Medicine position stand on exercise and fluid replacement, underscore the importance of individualized sweat rate, heat stroke, and operational readiness. 6. Assessment, noting that sweat rates and sodium concentrations vary substantially between individuals. High sweat rate soldiers, salty sweaters, are at elevated risk for both dehydration and hyponatremia simultaneously and may require sodium intakes well above standard dietary recommendations during sustained operations. Alternative and complementary hydration solutions. Oral rehydration solutions, ORS, formulated to WHO specifications, sodium 75 mol/L, glucose 75 mol/L, offer superior intestinal absorption kinetics compared to plain water due to glucose-sodium cotransport mechanisms and represent a cost-effective alternative. For field rehydration in heat-stressed soldiers, Mahan et al., 2006. Coconut water, despite popular advocacy, provides insufficient sodium for military heat environments and is not recommended as a primary rehydration vehicle. Hyperhydration with glycerol solutions prior to sustained operations has demonstrated modest benefits in expanding plasma volume and reducing physiological strain, though gastrointestinal side effects and logistical constraints limit broad military applicability. Intravenous normal saline, 0.9% NaCl, remains the treatment of choice for moderate to severe dehydration and early heat stroke when oral intake is contraindicated or insufficient. Impact of heat stress on cognitive performance in combat decision-making. Neurophysiological mechanisms. Combat effectiveness is ultimately a product of human cognitive performance. The ability to perceive threat, integrate sensory information, reason under uncertainty, and execute precise motor responses in milliseconds. Heat stress impairs each of these processes through heat stroke and operational readiness. 7. Multiple interacting mechanisms. As core temperature rises above 38 degrees Celsius, cerebral blood flow becomes increasingly compromised as cutaneous vasodilation and muscle perfusion compete with cerebral circulation for a reduced effective circulating volume. Hancock and Vasmatsidis. 2003. Hyperthermia also directly impairs neurotransmitter synthesis and synaptic efficiency, with particularly pronounced effects on dopaminergic and serotonergic systems implicated in executive function, sustained attention, and emotional regulation. Hancock and Vasmatsidis, 2003, conducted a comprehensive meta-analysis of heat stress effects on human performance, identifying a nonlinear dose-response relationship in which modest thermal elevations, core temperature 37.5 to 38.5 degrees Celsius, produce minimal cognitive decrement, while temperatures above 38.5 degrees Celsius are associated with progressive impairment in complex cognitive tasks including vigilance, working memory, and multitasking. Simple, well-practiced motor tasks demonstrate greater thermal resilience than novel or cognitively demanding tasks, with critical implications for mission planning and task assignment in high heat environments. Operational decision-making under heat stress. For the combat leader, heat-induced cognitive degradation translates to impaired tactical judgment at precisely the moments of highest demand. Studies in military populations have demonstrated that heat stress increases reaction times, narrows attentional focus, increases susceptibility to cognitive tunneling, and reduces the ability to integrate conflicting information. All functions critical to rules of engagement compliance, escalation of force decisions, and combined arms coordination. Bedno et al., 2010. Marksmanship performance. A foundational combat skill with significant psychomotor complexity, shows measurable degradation at core temperatures above 38.5 degrees Celsius, with particular impairment in the fine motor heat stroke and operational readiness. 8. Control required for aimed fire. Mitigation strategies. Command-level mitigation of heat-induced cognitive impairment begins with mission scheduling to avoid peak heat hours, 1000 to 1600 local time, rotation of personnel between high heat and shaded or air-conditioned environments, and reduction of cognitive load during maximal heat exposure. Pre-cooling strategies: application of ice vests, cold water immersion of forearms, or consumption of ice slurries prior to sustained operations have demonstrated significant cognitive protective effects by attenuating the rate of core temperature rise and preserving cerebral perfusion pressure, CASA et al., 2015. From a pharmacological perspective, caffeine has demonstrated some cognitive protective effects during mild heat stress, though its diuretic properties and potential to mask heat illness symptoms require careful consideration in the deployed environment. Preventing heat casualties in mechanized versus dismounted troops. Differential thermal load. The distinction between mechanized and dismounted operations represents one of the most practically important but underappreciated variables in military heat casualty prevention. Mechanized forces operating within armored vehicles such as the M1A2 Abrams main battle tank, M2A3 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, or Stryker armored vehicle face a unique thermal environment characterized by radiant heat from engine compartments and armor, limited ventilation, high crew density, and restricted ability to self-regulate activity intensity. Leon and Baukema, 2015. Vehicle interior temperatures in direct sunlight can exceed heat stroke and operational readiness 9. Ambient air temperature by 15 to 25 degrees Celsius, creating cabin temperatures that may reach 60 degrees Celsius or higher during sustained operations. Dismounted infantry, conversely, face the highest metabolic heat loads from sustained physical exertion while wearing individual body armor, EBOT, that weighs 15 to 30 kilograms and dramatically reduces convective and evaporative heat dissipation from the torso. The combination of high metabolic rate, impaired evaporation, and full solar radiation exposure places dismounted soldiers at maximum as risk during combat operations. Carter et al. 2020, Combat Engineers and Special Operations Forces conducting breaching or raid operations may sustain near maximal exertion for prolonged periods with limited opportunity for hydration or rest. Prevention protocols by force type. For mechanized forces, primary prevention focuses on vehicle climate control system maintenance, crew rotation with mandatory cool-down periods outside the vehicle, and thermal management garments. Liquid cooling garments, LCGs, vests containing a network of tubes. Circulating cooled water have demonstrated effectiveness in reducing crew heat strain during vehicle operations and are fielded in limited quantities to high-risk platforms such as armored vehicle recovery and route clearance elements. Carter et al., 2020. Phase change material. PCM, vests offer a logistically simpler alternative that requires no external power or water circulation infrastructure, though cooling duration is limited by the latent heat capacity of the PCM material. For dismounted forces, the cornerstone of prevention is the rigorous application of heat acclimatization protocols prior to operational deployment. A minimum of 10 to 14 days of HEAT stroke and operational readiness 10. Progressive heat exposure, including daily physical activity of 90 to 120 minutes at moderate intensity in the target thermal environment, produces significant physiological adaptations. Expanded plasma volume, 8 to 12%, reduced cardiovascular strain at equivalent workloads. Reduced core temperature for a given metabolic rate, earlier and more robust onset of sweating. And reduced sweat sodium concentration. Headquarters, Department of the Army, 2003. These adaptations substantially reduce as risk but require careful reacclimatization. Following return from temperate environments. Treatment and alternative medical solutions. Heat stroke treatment in the field environment centers on the principle that cool first, transport second. Cold water immersion, CWI, of the casualty in a body bag or improvised container filled with ice water represents the gold standard cooling modality, achieving cooling rates of 0.2, 0.35 degrees C/min, CASA ETAL, 2015. When immersion resources are unavailable. Aggressive cold water dousing combined with fanning, ice pack application to the neck, axillae, and groin, and intravenous cold saline provide meaningful cooling. The Tactical Combat Casualty Care, TCCC, framework. The military's evidence-based pre-hospital trauma care system has integrated heat stroke protocols emphasizing rectal temperature measurement for accurate core temperature assessment and cooling cessation at 39.0 degrees Celsius to prevent iatrogenic hypothermia. Alternative pharmacological adjuncts including dantrolene sodium, a muscle relaxant reducing metabolic heat production, and NSAIDs have limited evidence in ES and are not routinely recommended in field treatment protocols. Wearable biosensors for monitoring soldier heat stress in real time. Technology landscape heat stroke and operational readiness 11. The convergence of miniaturized microelectronics, flexible substrate materials, low-power wireless communication protocols, and cloud-based data analytics has enabled a new generation of wearable physiological monitoring devices capable of providing continuous, non-invasive assessment of heat stress indicators in operational environments. Patterson et al. 2019. Current military relevant biosensor modalities include a. Heart rate and heart rate variability monitors via chest strap or optical photoplethysmography, PPG, wristbands. b. Skin temperature sensors embedded in garments or adhesive patches. c. Predictive core temperature algorithms derived from heart rate kinetics, notably the bioharness and the Kenzen Echo platform. d. Galvanic skin response sensors measuring sweat rate as a proxy for hydration status, and e. Ingestible capsule core temperature sensors that transmit telemetry via radio frequency to a wrist-worn receiver. Validation and operational limitations. Patterson et al. 2019, evaluated the performance of the ingestible pill thermometry system and predictive core temperature algorithms during military training exercises in hot-wet and hot-dry environments. Results demonstrated mean absolute errors of 0.2 to 0.4 degrees Celsius for ingestible sensors and 0.3 to 0.6 degrees Celsius for algorithm predicted core temperature, with algorithm accuracy degrading during rapid transitions between rest and exercise intensity. These error margins are clinically significant. A 0.5 degrees Celsius error at a true core temperature of 39.5 degrees Celsius may mean the difference between appropriate monitoring and emergency intervention. Device durability. Under combat conditions including water immersion, physical shock, electromagnetic interference, and dust intrusion remains a critical development gap. Network integration and command situational awareness heat stroke and operational readiness 12. The true operational value of wearable biosensors is realized when individual physiological data streams are aggregated, analyzed, and displayed at the platoon, company, or battalion level to give leaders real-time situational awareness of their unit's heat strain status. Prototype systems have demonstrated the ability to display color-coded heat risk maps overlaid on tactical displays, enabling proactive intervention, mandatory rest, forced hydration, casualty extraction before clinical heat stroke develops. Patterson et al. 2019. Integration. With the U.S. Army's Integrated Visual Augmentation System, IVAS, and NetWarrior platforms represents a near-term pathway to fielding this capability at echelon. Significant data security and cybersecurity considerations attached to the transmission of individual biometric data in the operational environment, requiring encrypted communication protocols and clear data governance policies. Alternative and emerging sensor modalities. Sweat-based electrochemical biosensors represent an emerging frontier in non-invasive physiological monitoring, with prototype devices capable of continuously measuring sweat, sodium, lactate, glucose, and cortisol concentrations from flexible epidermal patches. Patterson et al., 2019. These analytes provide a richer picture of heat strain and metabolic stress than heart rate or temperature alone. Infrared thermographic cameras mounted on vehicle platforms or unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, offer the potential for standoff thermal assessment of dismounted forces, enabling rapid identification of individuals with abnormal surface temperature patterns indicative of heat stress without requiring device wear or wireless connectivity. Machine learning algorithms trained on longitudinal military physiological datasets may further improve the predictive accuracy and actionable lead time of wearable heat stress warnings. Heat stroke and operational readiness 13. Discussion. The evidence surveyed across these four domains converges on a set of enduring principles for heat casualty prevention and management in Persian Gulf operations. First, prevention is overwhelmingly more effective and operationally less disruptive than treatment. The resources consumed by a single heat stroke casualty medical personnel, medevac assets, replacement of the affected soldier's role in the mission dwarf those required for rigorous preventive measures. Second, heat stress management is inherently a leadership function. The most sophisticated biosensor or hydration protocol is rendered ineffective if commanders fail to enforce work rest cycles, mandate hydration, enforce acclimatization schedules, and create a command climate in which soldiers feel safe reporting early heat illness symptoms without fear of ridicule or professional consequence. Third, the heterogeneity of heat strain across individual soldiers attributable to fitness level, acclimation status, body composition, genetics, medications, and sleep debt argues against one-size-fits-all hydration or work rest prescriptions and in favor of individualized physiological monitoring of the type that wearable biosensors are beginning to provide. Fourth, the differential thermal environments of mechanized and dismounted operations require tailored prevention strategies that account for distinct heat load profiles, and commanders should avoid applying dismounted force guidelines to vehicle crews or vice versa. Alternative and complementary medical approaches including heat acclimatization, pre-cooling, nutraceutical supplementation, and behavioral adaptation do not replace but rather augment conventional hydration and cooling protocols. Tart cherry juice and beetroot heat stroke and operational readiness 14. Juice supplementation have shown modest anti-inflammatory and performance-preserving properties under heat stress in small controlled studies, though large-scale military trials are lacking. Adaptogenic herbs such as Rhodiola rosea have been studied in the context of physical and cognitive resilience to thermal stress in Russian military medicine, with preliminary but inconsistent results that do not yet support broad adoption. These alternative approaches merit continued investigation within the rigorous methodological framework of randomized controlled trials in relevant military populations. Conclusion. Heat stroke and heat-related illness represent a persistent, predictable, and largely preventable threat to U.S. military operational readiness in the Persian Gulf. The convergence of extreme thermal environments, demanding operational tempos, individual body armor, and the cognitive demands of modern combat creates conditions of exceptional HRI risk that demand a comprehensive, evidence-based, multi-layered prevention and response framework. Rigorous pre-deployment heat acclimatization, individualized hydration, and electrolyte management guided by contemporary military doctrine, tailored prevention strategies that Account for mechanized versus dismounted force profiles, and emerging wearable biosensor technologies collectively represent the components of such a framework. Sustained investment in operational medicine research, combined with strong command emphasis on heat safety culture, offers the most viable path to eliminating preventable heat casualties from the order of battle. Heat stroke and operational readiness 15. References: Bedno, S.A., Lee, Y., Hahn, W., Cowan, D.N., Scott, C.T., Cavacchia, M.A., and Niebuhr, D.W. 2010, Exertional Heat Illness Among Overweight U.S. Army Recruits in Basic Training. Aviation, Space, and Environmental Medicine, 81, 107-111. https://doi.org/10.3357/ASEM.2623.2010. Carter, J. M., Rayson, M. P., Bilson, J. L. J., Blacker, S. D., Neville, M. E., and Wilmot, A. G. B. 2020. Cooling Strategy Efficacy in Heat-Stressed Soldiers Wearing Body Armor During a Sustained Military Task. Journal of Thermal Biology, 92, 102,676. https://doi.org/10.1016/j.j30.2020.102676. Casa, D.J., DeMartini, J.K., Bergeron, M.F., Xylan, D., Eichner, E.R., Lopez, R.M. Ferrara, M.S., Miller, K.C., O'Connor, F., Saka, M.N., and Yergin, S.W., 2015. National Athletic Trainers Association Position Statement, Exertional Heat Illnesses. Journal of Athletic Training, 50, 986-1000. https://doi.org/10.4085/1062-6050-50.9.07. Hancock, P.A., and Vasmotsidis, I., 2003. Effects of Heat Stress on Cognitive Performance, the Current State of Knowledge. International Journal of Hyperthermia, 19, 355-372. https://doi.org/10.1080/026567302100054630. Headquarters, Department of the Army. 2003, Heat Stress Control and Heat Casualty Management, TBMED 507/IFPAM 48-152. U.S. Government Printing Office. Heat Stroke and Operational Readiness 16. Leon, L.R., and Baukema, A., 2015. Heat Stroke. Comprehensive Physiology, 5, 611-647. https://doi.org/10.1002/cphy.c140017. Monton, S.J., Saka, M.N., and Wenger, C.B., 2006. Hyponatremia associated with exercise, risk factors and pathogenesis. Exercise and Sport Sciences Reviews, 29, 3. 113-117. https://doi.org/10.103677-0003675. Patterson, M.J., Stocks, J.M., and Taylor, N.A.S., 2019. Sustained and Generalized extracellular fluid expansion following heat acclimation and real-time physiological monitoring in military personnel. Journal of Applied Physiology, 127, 4, 1098 to 1107. https://doi.org/10.1152/japlphysiol.00272.2019. Saka, M.N., Burke, L.M., Eichner, E.R., Mahan, R.J., Monton, S.J., and Stickenfeld, N. S., 2007. American College of Sports Medicine Position Stand, Exercise and Fluid Replacement. Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise, 39, 377 to 390. https://doi.org/10.1249/mss.0b013e31802CA597